Ahmed el-Shara to fill the leadership void in Syria.
Maybe there's some incentives that will make him not be as horrible. We should welcome that. Always welcome things that go in the right direction. Positive reinforcement is important. But that doesn't mean you have to capitulate to a terrorist who, frankly, I'm not even sure he's going to be there in power in a few years. I'm hearing people talk about this interim government as if they won an election already and are going to be in power for 20 years, so you better deal with them and accept them. Well, what is his political constituency? Can anybody tell me? Because the Al-Qaeda type Salafists hate him because his forces, after he left Al-Qaeda, did fight an Al-Qaeda affiliate there, so they don't like him. He's not extreme enough. The other Salafists will, and he's a Salafist himself, will call him an apostate who deserves death because he is participating in democracy and elections. And he calls it democracy, and that's a man-made process. The punishment for that is death. All right, so he lost that constituency. But who's left? Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood? No, maybe he's moving in that direction because it's been so successful. No, they're not going to accept him either, because he's talking about normalizing ties with Israel, and even if it's a trick, he's gone way too far. He's taken a step beyond what they would even say is permissible by deception. And all of a sudden, it's all this optimistic talk, and it's being obscured by groups, particularly 501c3 nonprofits in the United States, who are giving Ahmed el-Shara the fastest makeover of a public figure I have ever seen in my career of over 20 years. I never thought I would come to a day where a former leader of an Al-Qaeda branch in Syria, with maybe hours difference between when he was officially Al-Qaeda and no longer was, would suddenly be celebrated as a guy who saw the light. Hollywood studios, where celebrities can't pull that off. They usually have to go away for a while and then come back.
Up next, Syrian Christians have faced killings and persecution by militant Islamists and even Kurds in northeast Syria. They do not believe that the new Syrian government will protect them. Christian communities, and they're facing the threat of extinction. Syrian Christians have little reason to trust Syria's HTS government to protect them. At a recent Coptic Solidarity panel discussion on Syria, Syrian human rights advocate Asharena Abraham, a representative of the Syrian International Council, detailed the suffering of Christians living in northeast Syria and highlighted the failure of Kurdish militias to protect them from Islamic State jihadists.
The night ISIS entered Assyrian villages, the Khabra River swelled, and in the chaos, high-ranking Kurdish officials rushed to seize lands in Qamishli. They set up offices in Assyrian homes while families feared for their lives. When confronted and asked why they were not fighting, multiple members of my family were told point blank, "We will not sacrifice ourselves for filthy Christians." We saw this in Iraq when the Kurdish Peshmerga, or those who fight death, disarmed Assyrians and Yazidis 2 weeks before ISIS and abandoned 7 critical posts without firing a bullet. A single bullet, leaving us to slaughter, only coming back to follow Western forces and paint a picture of protection. How are we expected to place our faith in regimes like this? How can the world believe they are our defenders? Those who leave us to slaughter in silence while building false narratives as our protectors will never be guardians of peace because they are among the many architects of our erasure. International actors hail the Kurdish administration as a sanctuary for Christians, promoting a future Kurdish state built on the bones of indigenous Christians and branding it a beacon of tolerance in a fractured region. But like the fig tree Jesus cursed, lush in appearance yet barren at its core, this administration wears the guise of protection while ripping out the very roots of indigenous Assyrian Christian existence. On the ground, Assyrians are not equals. We are threatened into silence or risk disappearance and death. Our schools were shut down for refusing to adopt a politicized curriculum that glorifies the PKK, rewrites Assyrian history, and turns education into an instrument of indoctrination. 15% of Assyrian lands in the ANES-controlled areas have been confiscated. Over 1,400 homes and farms remain illegally occupied in the Khabra River Valley. SDF digs trenches on our churches and cemeteries, militarizing our sacred Christian spaces to provoke brutal, relentless Turkish retaliation. We don't want war where we worship. We don't want to be pawns in someone else's war. We don't want our churches turned into battlegrounds to manufacture illusions that one regime protects us while another attacks us. manipulating our suffering for Western backing at the expense of our existence. We don't want to balkanize Syria, but we want a foundation for sustainability where Assyrians can manage local governance, education, security, and cultural preservation without fear of interference or demographic manipulation. International aid, oversight, and recognition must support this initiative, not as a favor, but as an overdue corrective to decades of disenfranchisement. There is legal precedent for this. Under the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples have the right to self-determination. We do not ask to be rescued, we just want to be recognized. We want our indigenous rights. We want human rights. We cannot have meaningful conversations about protecting Christians if we are not listening to genuine Christian voices, those who are not speaking under the very real threat of death in front of the very regimes persecuting us. If we remain silent now, this pattern of murder and injustice will continue until the very last Assyrian in Syria is dead or gone, and every road of our homeland is once more fractured and regimes continue to pave over our freshly dead, bloody bodies. A community who still speaks the language of Jesus and whose evangelistic force spread Christianity from India to China will be a footnote in history. If we care about protecting Christians, we must stop applauding the hands that strangle us, stop funding the systems that erase us, and start standing with the people who have historically fought for all marginalized groups and now have been abandoned to fight alone just to stay alive while the world turns away from us and tokenizes our suffering to advance their corrupted agendas.